There we go. Whoa. Let's get this thing back down. Good morning. We've got that working. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Appropriations Subcommittee on Special Projects. We're going to move along rapidly. This is going to be hearing and discussion only today, so everybody becomes familiar with the bill that will be presented and some of the issues surrounding it. We will adjourn at 5 minutes till 9 promptly. So if you have remarks, please make them brief and to the point. And then if there's any additional discussions or information you'd like to present to the members, that can be done afterwards. We will not be voting on this. This is a hearing only and a discussion only. And with that, Representative Rice, if you would like to present to us your substitute to House Bill 2.
Well, thank you, Mr. Do I have to do anything? No? Okay. All right. I know you're in charge, Mr. Chairman. I would never disagree with that comment. Well, good morning to members of the subcommittee here this morning. I appreciate your attendance and your attention to this vital issue that we're here to address via House Bill 2. Basically, House Bill 2 attempts to ensure compliance with Senate Bill 529, which was passed into law in 2006. That's the Georgia Security and Immigration Compliance Act. The way it does that, it seeks to ensure compliance by making the issuance of any grant subject to the verification of legal status by E-Verify or by the SAVE program, which you should know is the Systematic Alien Verification for Entitlements program. That validates the legal status for all public benefits and licenses. We do it via a section of code known as the Fair and Open Grants section of code, which is where this is found in Article 5 of Chapter 5 of Title 28. And it makes the issuance of grants, as you can find on line 14, subject to satisfaction compliance with Code Section 131091 and 5036-1. Now, you have both of them in front of you in these things we handed out, okay? But very shortly and very directly, 131091 is the portion of the code that dwells on employee verification and the requirements for employee verification. Section 5036-1 really refers to public benefit applicants and the assurance that you know whether the public benefit applicant is really a person here in a legal status that qualifies for a public benefit. So those are the two things that it really seeks to do. Now, why are we doing this? Well, in the Georgia Security and Immigration Compliance Act in 2006, there was a staged implementation regarding who had to implement this by what particular point in time. Everyone named in the Act had to finally implement this process of verification for a number of different things, business licenses and so on and et cetera, by July 1 of 2008. So the law is fully in place at this particular point in time. Now, as of January 7th of 2009, by the information I've got provided by the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, it reveals that 8 local governments use the SAVE database in Georgia. That's of 159 counties and 535 cities. So the compliance, at least at that particular point in time, was rather vague, I would say. And so the only way to gain attention on this is to affect their ability to gain money from the state. And what we've attempted to do is to focus on just those things that apply in the grants area through that Fair and Open Grants Act. Now, I am told by the Legislative Budget Office, John Brown, that in his view, it's primarily the local assistance grants, which we all know about, and the LARP funding that are done via the grant process. And that totals at this point in time, I think on the new budget request, at approximately $110 million. Okay? So that $110 million is something that a number of counties and municipalities would love to have a part of, and you know how important that is to your various districts. And so we think that ensuring compliance with this is vitally important. Now, what you don't want to have is a situation where, which we do have, illegal immigrants, never verified, coming to a county municipality for a business license and having a business license issued to them when we don't know the legal status of them at all. And therefore, effectively, we are endorsing illegal immigration and more illegal immigration in that particular fashion. And that's what the bill basically does. Now, are we a caring state? Yes, we're a caring state. We currently spend about $1.6 billion annually for illegal aliens and their dependents in K-12 education, public health care, and the incarceration of criminals. So we spend a fair amount of dollars already on that issue, and it's a very, very little thing to ask to ensure compliance, that if you want that grant money, you comply with the tenets of Senate Bill 529. Now, that is it in terms of the bill. It's obviously a very simple bill, but it has some far-reaching effects in terms of the code sections that it deals with. And in that regard, there are some communities of interest, namely 501c3 recipients, Catholic charities, others who distribute funds to their clients, those people who come to them for some particular service, that they feel are affected by this. And therefore, we made a change, and that's why you have a substitute in here in line 17, point number 4, that the requirement for public services in 5036-1 refers to an applicant who is an agency or a political subdivision of the state. So we're trying to make sure we tie this to a particular political subdivision for the grant requests only. That does not say that they don't have to ensure that their employees are verified under E-Verify, and so they would have to comply with that portion of the law and the 501c3 status. Mr. Chairman, Legislative Counsel has pointed out to me this morning that on further review, it probably is an overkill to use the word agency on line 17, since any agency, which is going to be state government agencies particularly, are handled under the appropriation process and therefore are not grantees. So at the appropriate time, we would probably want to amend this bill to take out the words agency and only leave in political subdivision of the state. With that, Mr. Chairman, I would take any questions. Oh, one other point I'd like to make. I want to make sure that you understand that we're working with the interested parties in the room here to attempt to make sure that we do the right thing in handling this. I know the ACCG is attempting to get their members to get it going, and Michelle has offered her information in terms of the number of counties that have since and municipalities, well, counties, I guess, really counties, that have since attempted to use the E-Verify capability and SAVE capability. One more word on the 501c3s. The 501c3, the SAVE program, use the SAVE program, costs about 50 cents for everybody that comes through the door. So it also takes approximately 3 weeks in some cases to get information back from it. So the provision of those services by those charitable organizations would be impacted if we required them for the implementation of the grant that they get to comply with that section of the law, and that's why that change was made. So with that, I would stand for any questions from the subcommittee and ask your active endorsement of this bill.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Do we have any questions or comments from the subcommittee at this time? Representative Reinders.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Chairman Rice. I really love the concept of this bill, and I appreciate the hard work you're doing on it. Is there anything, or what's your thoughts that the political subdivision has already received the grant and then violates after the fact? Is there a penalty as far as you know?
There is not a penalty, but I think logically, and in other provisions of the bill, I think the Secretary of State is responsible for auditing the provisions of the Senate Bill 529. So there is an oversight compliance requirement. There's also a reporting requirement that was a portion of 529 at that point in time. So yeah, I'm sure that could happen. I mean, people are people, Mr. Chairman, and that could certainly happen. But I think subject to the audit and certainly scrutiny for any further grants would be certainly something I'd pay attention to if I was in that position.
And one more follow-up, if I may.
Yes.
I applaud your effort in regards to the substitute with the not-for-profits, but I am also concerned about creating that level of dependency. There's that fine line between compassion and that level of dependency. Do you feel that any of the nonprofits have any obligation whatsoever to try to serve citizens of this state first with their services?
Well, I think every 501c3 that is a nonprofit organization it has a responsibility, a public responsibility, to serve the best interest of the community that they're by charter in place to do. And whether that extends to free services or for fee services of one type or another, cost covering type things, what I'm talking about. Yes, I do think that there's an obligation to do that on their part.
Thank you.
What I don't want to do is to stifle that activity in any way.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Are there at this time any additional questions? Chairman Rice, if we would, what I'd like to do first, before we hear any additional comments, is you did mention that you would like to make a change to this substitute, and I'd like to deal with that now so we have the wording that we'd actually be discussing for the rest of the remainder of the time on this.
That's fine with me, Mr. Chairman. I would suggest the following wording, if you're
please
open to that, to change line 17 after the word is, and insert the word a, take out an agency or, so that it reads, if an applicant is, I guess I'm sorry, it's not a, it's an agent, or excuse me, it is a. If an applicant is a political subdivision of the state. That's the way it should read.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Do I hear a motion regarding this potential change? In a second. All in favor? Please say aye. Those opposed, like sign. Passes unanimously. So we have made the change on line 17 of the LC 1499-53S to strike out the words an agency or and insert the word a at that point. So it will read, if the applicant is a political subdivision of the state. Thank you very much. And with that, with a few minutes, I know we have a few
Mr.
people.
Mr. Chairman, I would, if there's any time left at the end after the others testify, and there's anything you'd like to know about this, I would be happy to return to the podium.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I know we have a few people that would like to talk, and I didn't put up a sign-up sheet out there, but I know Michelle from the ACCG definitely has mentioned she would like to mention something else. And if anybody else would like to speak, if you would inform Jan, if you would raise your hand over there, and she'll put it on a sheet so we can do that in the remaining 10 minutes. So, Michelle, if you would please.
I've got some additional information for the committee. I know our time is
And Michelle, if you would, because this is being recorded and broadcast live, if you would please state your name and affiliations.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. My name is Michelle Neesmith, and I represent the Association County Commissioners of Georgia. I appreciate the committee indulging me to have the opportunity to speak on House Bill 2 today. I just wanted to briefly go over a few facts about why some of the counties have not complied yet with some of these programs and give you some background on that information. Counties strive to comply with the law. There's no counties that I know out there that are potentially trying to go through and not comply with this Immigration Act, but there are a lot of problems with their compliance, and that's what I want to go over with you briefly today. Inside your folder, I've included my written comments because I know our time is of the essence, but basically, of the two programs, the E-Verify and SAVE, we were, as an organization, alerted this summer that there were a lot of counties that had not signed up for either program. When we started doing a little bit of research to try to figure out why that was the case, we found out that there were a lot of problems associated with the registration. The E-Verify program, which is the program that you have to sign in for to verify new employees, at the beginning of the summer, according to the Department of Homeland Security, there were about 64 counties that were not signed in for the program. Once we looked and saw what counties had not signed up for it, we started contacting them and putting information on our website about what the E-Verify program was and what they should be doing. And I can say as of today, there's only 19 counties that have not signed up for the E-Verify program. So at this point, we're 88% compliant. It's become easier to register. The word's out. We as an organization are working with these 19 counties to get them registered. As far as E-Verify is concerned with the county level, I think that's something we can handle and that we'll get 100% compliance on that program. The SAVE program, however, is a little bit different in that it's a very complicated program. The issues that I've heard involving that as to why counties have not registered with it is because there's a 6-point process to get signed up for the SAVE registration. It's pretty convoluted. It's also not just going online and signing up for it. It's the fact that you have to go back and forth several times with the Department of Homeland Security, exchanging lots of different types of information. Some of the counties I've spoke to have not gotten the reports back from the Department of Homeland Security. Others have been told by the Department of Homeland Security they do not qualify for the SAVE program and they should not be registered. So there's a lot of confusion there. Also, as applies to SAVE, probably the biggest confusion level as to what is the definition of a public benefit. Senate Bill 529 ties public benefits to the federal statute, which I included in your packet, that defines state and local benefits, but it's kind of vague. It's not really specific to Georgia government. And when you look through that list, it's not really apparent what we should be complying with. Now, if you go through the SAVE registration, and I personally went through partially the first part just so I could see what other benefits they were referring to, there is a list of 84 benefits within the SAVE registration, which I've also included in your packet, but there's really no explanation as to how this list was put together, what they actually mean, what types of government it refers to, or either, exactly if these are just suggestions or actually part of what is a public benefit. And so going through that list of 84 items, we're trying to get more clarity on it, but right now I can tell you that less than 10 would apply to county government. And again, we're trying to get more clarity. But that's been the main problems, is a lot of problems with the registration. It's taken some counties over 6 months to get registered, and they're still not registered. They're in the system. To Chairman Rice's point, he's correct that there's 3 counties that are signed up for SAVE right now, Cobb, Gwinnett, and Hall County. But that list doesn't reflect the ones that are currently in the system that are trying to register for it. And we know that there are several to that point. And just to conclude my remarks, because I know we're running out of time, I'd also like you to realize that the SAVE and E-Verify program is not just local governments. It also refers to state governments. And at this point, there's only 5 state agencies that are registered for the SAVE program. And like local governments, they may be facing some of the problems that we are, as trying to define what's a public benefit and whether or not they need to apply for it. But there are definitely agencies out there that should be under it that aren't currently.
Thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you.
We appreciate your comments and the desire to keep things moving on time. We have Stan Jones from United Way.
I'm Stan Jones with the Nelson Mullins Law Firm. Our firm actually represents the Georgia Center for Nonprofits, and I'm with Ann Mintz's permission from United Way. We just wanted to make a comment or two. The United Way, as you know, is the large umbrella agency here distributing a huge amount of resources for charitable organizations in the metro area. Georgia Center for Nonprofits represents about 1,500 501c3s around the state with offices in Brunswick and Savannah as well as Atlanta. We tend to sort of governance and issues that affect the nonprofit sector generally. We did go to Representative Rice and ask for the change that he's brought to you this morning. We appreciate that. I think it has the effect of leaving the existing law as it is, as it was passed in 529, incorporating both state and federal issues about about services delivered that are public benefits. A lot of those, as you know, are delivered by the nonprofit communities to our citizens widely. So thank you for the change, and we're happy also to answer questions or talk to you individually later this week if you'd like.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. And next is Ted Baggett from the GMA.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I know your time is short. As you said, I'm Ted Baggett with the Georgia Municipal Association. First, let me apologize to Representative Rice, who I haven't had a chance to talk to about his bill before this morning, and I generally like to do that. In the interest of time, I'm not going to repeat everything that Michelle said with ACCG, but just so that you know, I'm here, and cities are having a similar experience. The majority of cities have become compliant with E-Verify since the passage of Senate Bill 529. Those that haven't tend to be extremely small cities. They're generally operate a water system or do one or two land use functions. These really tiny cities, it's just hard to get the word out. I think if you look at population represented by the cities that have signed up, we're probably at 85-90% compliance. SAVE is what our problem is. There's only a handful of cities that have signed up, and our frustration is, as Michelle noted, there are state agencies that do sort of some of the same things we think ought to be signing up for this. The Department of Revenue, the Insurance Department, the Agriculture Department. Agriculture and Insurance issue professional licenses for insurance agents and pesticide applicators. I think that's probably a professional license under the federal law that's referenced by 529, so why aren't they signed up? Department of Revenue issues state alcohol licenses, just like local governments. Why aren't they signed up? So our frustration is we're looking to state agencies for guidance. We have, with the help of some state representatives, been trying to get guidance from the Attorney General of Georgia since the middle of the summer, and have yet gotten no written guidance as to which public benefits under the federal law are ones that we need to be focused on when we sign up for SAVE. When you go to sign up for SAVE, they want to know which public benefits your entity is providing that you need to seek verification from the applicant. And on all the listed statutes in the federal government, in the federal statute, and under that federal registration, there are even fewer things cities do than counties do that might apply. And so, this is what I tell folks. I've yet to have a single municipal official, elected or appointed, say, gosh, we really want to help further illegal immigration. It's simply a question of administration and difficulty in compliance. We have SAVE employees that have hung up on city managers that tell cities and city clerks, you're not eligible for this program, it's not applicable to you. So please understand, cities are trying to comply with the law. We just are having trouble with SAVE.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Mr. Baggett. And that almost wraps up our time here. I believe we have a question. Excuse me, Mr. Baggett. We do have a question from Representative Green. Thanks, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just one quick thought. It would be helpful to the representatives to receive the list of those cities that are not in compliance, and we might be able to help you.
With SAVE?
With SAVE.
What we do have is, I think Michelle, maybe in her packet, are the list of Georgia agencies that are compliant with SAVE. There's only 3 cities, 3 counties, and 5 state agencies. So anybody who's not on it is not compliant.
What about E-Verify?
E-Verify, we get a list from Homeland Security, and it just gives you
all the Georgia companies, and you can filter. I filtered through there to pick out the counties that you can filter through there.
Okay.
And we filtered through, and I think I've identified at least 275 cities that have signed up, and our GMA continually calls and faxes those that haven't, trying to get them to.
If we could possibly have a list of that to the committee of the ones that have, if you could filter those out and forward it to us.
Of the cities,
well, the cities that have is probably easier than the ones that have not, just because of the quantity.
Sure.
whichever way, as long as we know where it is, so the members might have a chance to work with their communities and their cities.
Sure.
Thank you very much. This is a complex question. With that, Chairman Rice, if you'd like to wrap us up with the final comments so we can
I would love to wrap it up at this point in time, Mr. Chairman. Thank you so much. And thank you to all those who testified, and I recognize the difficulties they might have had. The point is that this law was signed into law with the effective date of July of 2006. And so the provisions of this Senate Bill 529 have been known for over 2 years. And, the issue of the complexity I would have hoped would have been worked through. My guess is that they didn't start on it soon enough to affect the law. But I think from our standpoint, the need to ensure compliance on a continuing basis would be going to the other question is something the law does accomplish at the same time in terms of this bill. So anyway, I appreciate your time and your effort, and I'll look forward to talking with you further.
Thank you very much, Chairman Rice. And my charge to the committee now is to take this information, think about it, go back to your communities, work with them, and if we get any additional input from the cities and counties, I'll make sure we pass it on directly to the members, and we will have a future hearing on this where we will have a little bit of additional time. This is kind of just a kickstart to get everybody looking at the facts and the issues, thinking about it, and we will come back at a time in the future to discuss it again. Thank you so much for your attendance today, and we stand adjourned.